Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Eric Kales.
Let's go. Make no excuses now. I'm talking here and now. I'm talking here and now. Let's go.
Hey everybody. Thanks so much. As they say, all good things must come to an end. We're in our last general session. I'm happy, but a little sad as well. Happy because I could sleep late tomorrow. Sad because this was one of the best experiences of my life, hanging with all my EO brothers and sisters here in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Really had a great time, got some great feedback. Please give us evaluations. We want to do everything we can to make EO Nerve 2015 the best that we can be. Use your mobile app and give us some feedback on both the speakers and anything else that comes to mind that we can make better. As EOers, we're always looking to get better. So when you're talking about getting better, I don't really have one of my long Ben Franklin stories this time. Just a very simple plea to you. See me at the bar, I got a lot of them, okay? The doors of wisdom are never shut, and that's kind of EO. We're always looking to get better, always looking to learn. There's a lot of things that, you don't know what you don't know kind of stuff, and that's why coming to a conference like this is so important. So instead of a story, I wanted to show you Ben Franklin's 13 virtues. As a young man, he wrote down, if I can knock off these 13 things, I'll be a great person. Every single day he made a little chart, and at the end of the day, he made a tick mark next to each one of the 13 if he was able to accomplish something. So when I was, doing my Ben Franklin stuff, it seemed kind of EO that every day, I can get a little better. And Ben Franklin lived till 84 years old, and literally to the end, his whole goal was self-improvement. How can I get better? Even though he was pretty much the man at that time of all history as a statesman, an inventor, and a well-loved Philadelphian. So if you ever Google Ben Franklin's 13 virtues, pretty interesting, all common sense stuff, but every single day before bed, he checked himself to make sure he was getting better each day. So coming here, getting content, meeting your peers, my only plea to you is don't go home and forget about all this stuff. Make a couple little improvements in your daily life, in your business, personal and family, so that you can make sure that Nerve made an impact on you and you really had a profitable experience. So with that point, I just wanted to thank the local committee. This was a team that got together. We met once a week, once every other week by phone, in person. Sometimes it was fun, like we came down here, did some food tasting, then had our meeting. Sometimes we just did it over the phone. Sometimes our calls got canceled because people were busy. But we always made progress month over month, and about a year and a half went by with little building blocks to get to today. So I just wanted to thank them literally from the bottom of my heart. I'm getting a lot of credit. Hey, great job, but I was only the band leader. These are the guys that were rocking the band. So if you guys wouldn't mind standing up for a second and turning around, let everybody see who all those people were. Thank you very much. And conspicuously missing is that rock star event manager. Where is Katie? Before we split, is she here? Where is she? She out there? She's behind, right, she just registered someone and got us an extra $599. Listen, if you see Katie, give her a hug too, even though we've been giving her high fives. She deserves a lot of the credit. She was really the backbone of the entire operation. So that moves us on to our next conversation. I'd like to introduce Joe Friedman. Joe Friedman is the Nerve Chairman 2015 Nashville. Joe? So, I don't know where I'm going to stand. Okay, here, I'll get in the middle here. So, this is actually it, the Nerve Torch. It travels year after year from chairman to chairman. Sat on my desk for a year and a half, reminding me, man, I should really do some Nerve stuff today. I'm very happy to pass this to Joe Friedman with all the best of luck. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, one more round of applause for Eric and his team. Incredible job. What an incredible job you guys did. Awesome. Nerve 2015, it's in Nashville. The dates are September 16th through the 18th. I'm going to let you in on a couple secrets. The first 200 people that register for Nerve 2015 get a $400 discount off of Nerve. Additionally, Global is giving anyone that hasn't been to a Global event and signed up in the last 2 years an additional $500 off. Okay, but here's the secret. This only goes till midnight tonight, all right? And somehow, some way, 105 people have already signed up. No bullshit. If you want to sign up, it's nerve2015.com, or you can go right in the next room, but there are about 95 seats for that $400 off the first discount. So I would highly encourage you guys when you leave here to go do that. We're going to take a minute and show you a little welcome video from a friend of ours in Nashville.
I hear the train coming, it's rolling around the bend. It's the end of the world as we know it.
There must be some way out of here. I've been roaming around, always looking down at all I see.
Music City. Almost every artist makes music here. Rolling Stone named it America's best music scene. Dozens of venues with world-class music talent. Playing all day, every day. A healthcare capital, a red-hot entrepreneurial city, education and learning, schools dedicated to arts, music, and film, recognized as one of the best places to start a business and work in a creative field. A booming art and food scene called the most electric spot in the South. Nashville is even the star of its own TV show. Now, an artist who created #1 hits from Lone Star and Big and Rich. He founded Music Mafia and appeared on Celebrity Apprentice.
Hey friends and neighbors, it's John Rich, and I want to invite you to Nashville, Music City, for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. EO's Nerve Nashville will be September 16th through the 18th in 2015. So here's the deal. The first 200 people who sign up get a $400 discount and have a chance to attend a private honky-tonk get-down Nashville-style concert. Can I get a hell yeah? I'll be there with a few friends of mine, so you better make sure you mark those calendars. It's going to be very, very cool. A little bit country and a whole lot of rock and roll. Get your country ass online today and sign up, y'all.
And for the first time at a Nerve event, new member forum training, moderator training, forum retreat packages for longer stays, and a full agenda for spouses.
You better make sure you mark those calendars because it's going to be really, really cool.
Lots of music and business, and a capital of the music business. World-class business speakers and social events. Guitars, bars, stars.
Get your country asses online and sign up now, people. It is going to be a killer VIP experience you can only get in Music City at Nerve Nashville. Y'all saddle up. I'll see you there.
All right, guys, so again, nerve2015.com. And there are also deep discounts for spouses and accelerator folks. So get on it, and we'll see you guys in Nashville. Thank you.
Nice job, guys. Nice job. All right. Barrett just jumped up and ran over to the other room to buy a few tickets. You better beat him to the table. Here we go, guys. We have one more thing that we have to wrap up our business on. Our EO Speaks competition has been a great success. A lot of people voting, a lot of people indicating who their favorite EO Speaks TED Talk style videos are. And by just a few votes, I'd like to proudly say that Mark Rubin from EO Chesapeake Bay, his business visualization was #1 voted by our team. Mark, are you in the audience, I hope? Where are you, buddy? Come on up.
Business visualization.
Mark, congratulations.
A way to see how business has grown.
Yeah, keep cranking out that content. Nice job. All right. All right. Great. So that brings us to our last speaker. You know how they say you save the best for last. So here we go. To introduce our last speaker of Nerve 2014, I'd like to bring up Bob Simpson, committee member, former EO Philly chapter chair, to introduce our speaker. Go get him, man.
Thank you, Eric. Quick shout out to the friends of room 3507, but that's okay. I guess back in 2013, we were looking for an event for EO Philly. And we mentioned the name Rudy Karsan, and not anybody really knew who Rudy Karsan was at the time. But I knew Rudy personally, and I said, Rudy will light up the room. He was our highest rated speaker in EO Philly for the last few years. Rudy was the founder of a company called Connexa, and Connexa went on to become the largest independent provider of human capital management space. How's that? He built the company from 1987 up until 2012, went through an IPO. In 2012, a big player came to the door, knocked on the door. The player was IBM. Rudy wasn't sure if he was meeting with IBM to buy them or if they were there to buy him. Rudy realized IBM was there to buy him. So in 2012, Rudy sold his entrepreneurial company to IBM. He'll tell you the price in his talk. It's amazing. But Rudy doesn't measure success with the dollar sign in there. He measures success by how much of an impact he has on the people he's worked with over his life. He's a tremendous guy. I've known him for many years. His book, How to Increase Performance and Profits Through Full Engagement, was a New York Times bestseller. Rudy's been named Entrepreneur of the Year, CEO of the Year, many awards. And he also did something else that made it very important for him to be here today. We've talked about Ben Franklin as being the first entrepreneur in Philadelphia. Well, in 1991, Rudy and 6 of his friends got together and they decided to form EO Philly. Rudy was the first EO Philly member and was a member of EO's first forum in Philly. So Ben might have been the first, Rudy's the best, and the modern. Something else that nobody really knows about Rudy right now is not only is he a true gentleman and a great businessman, he's also a new grandfather. So without anything else, Rudy Karsan.
Thanks, Bob. So how many of you have organized events for your company or for anything else? Raise your hands. Okay, a lot of people have. So I know how it works in EO, right? You organize these events, you line up your speakers, you have your budget, and you start going with the keynotes, and then you get to the end, and you realize you have no money. And how do you solve the problem? You go, well, let me go get a local yokel for free. If I can find them, scrape them off the ground, and bring them here. So that's me, okay? I'm the local yokel for free. This is a great event because you've got a bunch of ADHD individuals who spent 2 days sitting listening to people, and you're expected to listen to them some more while there's a band behind you. How much harder can it get? So what I decided was, rather than kind of ramble along with PowerPoints and stories, I'd spend only 15, 20 minutes chatting, and then you decide how long you want it to be. But I guarantee you it won't go beyond an hour. And you'll decide how long it's going to be based on the questions you asked. So to add a little bit more to what Bob said, just to set the stage, the company was sold for over $1 billion, $1.3 billion, and thank you, IBM. It really made my day. But in my journey, I've raised amounts of money in the 10 digits. I've actually lost amounts of money in the 10 digits as well. And if it weren't for one person, who I think is here today, a guy by the name of Don Volk, if you know him, I would have lost a lot more. I would be scraped off the street. So thanks to Bob, who's been my partner and CFO now for almost 20 years. The other thing to bear in mind is, in some of the journeys I've had, we've bought 35 companies, started a bunch of businesses, operated in 25, 30 countries around the world. So in all these experiences that I've had, most of which have been flaming failures, I've come to the basic recognition that if you're an entrepreneur, it's all about me, myself, and I. when the business world intersects with us as individuals, it's all about me. So for the selfish people in the audience, revel in that thought. I just made your day. For the people who are more selfless, learn to be a little bit more selfish. So I'm going to start with the first one. Know yourself. Because what I have learned is leadership in high growth spaces means you don't know what you're doing. I have never kind of known what I'm doing. However, if I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know myself, it's the perfect form for disaster. So let me give you a couple of stories about what I mean by that. In 2005, we were getting ready to price our IPO on a Thursday. So most IPOs in those days, and still do, get priced on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And Thursday, as Thursday was ending, the Dow was finishing its second day with a 100-point drop. Now, in those days, the Dow had only dropped 100 points like 30 times in its history, and we had back-to-back days. The underwriters said they were having trouble holding the book open in our price range, and that we would have to discount in order to close the deal. And what I realized at that point in time is you can't really trust the underwriter, because the underwriter is going to make their 7% commission regardless, and the difference for them is marginal. Our range was 14 to 15, and they were coming in at 12. And so I really had only two choices. Choice number one, price at 12. Choice number two, keep the book open for over the weekend. Hopefully we'll price by Tuesday, because you don't really price on Mondays. Or it might go through all of next week and wait for it to turn around. The street knows you're going to price on Thursday. And if it doesn't, your price can implode, and you might even go out at 9. So what do? You pick up the phone, you call up your partners. I called up my equity partners. I called up people that had been in the business for a while. And this got so tense that the last 3 meetings that were held then, I think it was in Minneapolis. No, it was Milwaukee. Don Volk, who I mentioned as my CFO, actually did those meetings on his own. I just couldn't breathe. I was so anxious. And what had happened was every person I called said the same thing to me basically. It's your decision. Nobody was willing to tell me what to do. You are never as alone as when you've got hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. You've got your own capital, your own equity on the line, and all these people that have trusted in you, friends of yours, that came along the journey, that you have this fiduciary responsibility to, and you just can't make the decision. There was a park outside the final meeting, because I kept driving along in the car. And finally, literally, and Don will verify this, I was breaking out in a sweat. I didn't know what to do. Final meeting gets done, come back and I go, okay, we're pricing. Balloons go off, hooray, hooray. The deal that the private equity guys had with us was a preferred deal, which means they were protected, and I had just shafted our common shareholders by about 8%. And my own personal net worth, about 60% or 70% was tied up in this business. So I just basically eliminated 5, 6, 7% of my net worth with that one decision. Just remember that story. Story number 2. In June of 2012, I get a call. But before I get that call, in about March of 2012, our second competitor got sold. So the first one was bought by Oracle, by SAP. The second one was bought by Oracle. Now, we were the largest independent provider, and we made a decision that in this world, as an independent provider, going up against the existing enterprise software players was foolhardy, because another company was coming in through the pike that was the PeopleSoft founder who had sold his company to Oracle, had created another company called Workday. So in this SaaS market, software as a service, we were going to start getting squeezed. And so the decision was made. Let's figure out a way to do this. And let's highlight and identify the 2, 3, 4 most likely buyers of us. So, I mean, we had the usual list of suspects, and IBM was number 1 on that list. And I remember on 4 days before the IBM meeting, I went into Don's office and I said, Don, I have no rational reason for saying this, but in the next few weeks, IBM's going to buy us. Because I knew that's what needed to happen. IBM's GM calls me up, whom we partner with on one of the software products, and says he wants a one-on-one meeting with me. I'm thinking it's an escalation. I got the head of ops, the head of services lined up in case I got to put in the call. He says, it's one-on-one, Rudy. I said, okay. I walk into the conference room. His name's Alistair. Alistair introduces this guy by the name of Archie Colburn and says, meet the head of business development of IBM. My immediate reaction to him was, that tells me one of two things. You're here to sell me IBM or buy Connexa, which is it? After the laughter, he said, we're here to buy IBM. We're here to buy Connexa. And I said, how much and when? He said, that's it. I said, that's it. The meeting was done in like less than 5 minutes. They said, we'll get you a term sheet in 48 hours, which they did. They had given us a premium of over 60% of the market. We were able to negotiate another 10% above that. Because we knew exactly what we wanted. We were ready. So I knew myself and I was ready. And that's when the two connected. And in the first story, when I look back, it was a massive mistake. It was a massive error, because what had happened in the first story was there was so much fear and anxiety. A small company, we were only doing something like 70, 80 million a year. We'd already put in $2.5 million into the cost associated with the IPO. It had eaten through a third of our cash reserves. And so there was just so much anxiety. And it was a public event, and people were expecting this to happen. So the ability to think rationally disappeared. And it was just the driver around my fear that made that decision. Fortunately, I was able to correct it. And it's, in the words of Kissinger, right? If you don't know where you're going, all roads lead nowhere. The second point I'd like to point out is always have somebody there for help. So let me share a story with you. In the 1990s, we were an Inc. 500 company for 4 years consecutively. Now, this was the manly version, right? Today you have Inc. 5000, the wussy version. Everyone qualifies for that damn word, right? This was the manly version. And we had done 4 years in a row, which means that over a 7-year period, we had a CAGR of 60% growth. So we were growing literally about 60% a year. And I was such a legend in my own mind that I knew it all. But the business was starting to hurt because there wasn't truly a second layer of leadership there. People in my forum told me I was a little bit crazy. Friends told me I was a little crazy. And there are people out there who are right now thinking, I know, because that's me. Well, it was me. And by the time 1999 rolled around, 1 year after we won our last Inc., everything imploded. The guy I founded the company with wanted out. the parting was so devastating, he actually threatened my children over the phone, and I had to get security for them on his way out. Employees were trying to steal the business. Cash flow was so weak, we were in workout. I actually, at that point in time, decided to build a house so I could flow checks between the house, the construction loan, and support the business. I broke the law. Who cares? But at the end of the day, everything imploded. However, if I had been a little careful, I would have seen the signs. Salesforce effectiveness was dropping. Customer escalations were climbing. Gross margins were shrinking. Across the board, the world was speaking to me. I chose not to listen because of my ego. So for those of you who are legends in your own mind, and you know it all, just remember one thing: the all is a lot bigger than you think it is. Because ultimately what is going to happen is if you don't have somebody holding your hand on the journey you're going to walk on, you will find every single pothole. And you can be strong enough to sustain yourself through a few of them, but unless you're Superman, you will hit your kryptonite. There is no doubt in my mind. And this became such a passionate issue for me that in the bestseller that Bob mentioned, I dedicated an entire chapter to career boards. And it's become such an individual driver for me that one of the very few times that I've accepted a not-for-profit board position is with WPO as the WPO member chapter chair for mentorship. So those of you in the greater Philly area, if you're looking for mentors, if you're in EO or in YPO looking for mentors, drop me a line, rudy.karsan@gmail.com. It is imperative that for the crucial part of your life, you're holding somebody's hand. Because if you really think about it, Einstein said it best: great minds learn from their mistakes. Really smart minds learn from mistakes of others. It's your choice. Do you want one or the other? Because there's no doubt in my mind that sitting in this room today, you've already been at the pinnacle of everything you've competed for. If you weren't an academician in school, you were probably on a sports team. Your entire world, you've always sat in that top 1%, top 3%, top 5%. And that reinforcement that came around you continued to make you believe in yourself to the point where your ego becomes really, really strong. But remember, the other side of that coin is deep insecurity. And that's a lesson I learned. The stronger my ego got, the more insecure I was. And if you have somebody who can listen to you with not their ears, but with their heart and their mind, and you can reciprocate with them, your problems literally get halved. The third message I would leave behind is heal thyself. And in heal thyself, I don't necessarily mean health. When people think of health, they think of physical or mental, right? So do I work out? Yeah, it's imperative. Am I of sound mind? It's imperative. I'm talking about your core. I'm talking about the spiritual aspect of you. What are your drivers? What really makes your heart sing? When are you the most balanced in your life? I know what my drivers are, and they're in no particular order: ego, greed, fear, joy, purpose, and love. And when they're out of sync, I hate myself. I don't like myself anymore. It makes me a bad person. And bad things don't happen overnight. They accumulate. And when you're out of center and you're not healing yourself, those bad things tend to accumulate faster. There is an argument that there is nothing, there's no bad thing that's ever happened on the planet that's instantaneous other than maybe the meteorite that hit that eliminated the dinosaurs. Well, some people say, well, what about 9/11? Well, the signs were out there. If you remember, there was stuff happening in Yemen. Al-Qaeda's name was getting stronger. All the signs were out there. Bad things don't happen instantaneously in business. It is absolutely the building of small bad things to become a big bad thing and then an implosion. And if you don't heal yourself, you have an issue. So I'll share a story with you. Like, I'm an immigrant, right? So I came here in the late 80s. As an immigrant, life is on a hairline. You can either be on this side of it and be fortunate and be standing on stage, or the other side of it is I'm tending the gardens out there that make the lower look so beautiful. And I know that. I know it's a hairline. And so you're so scared. You're hustling all the time. You're in a rush for everything. Rush to get your kids into the best schools. Rush to build the best friendships you can. And after a while, you lose yourself. So how do you heal yourself? There's a guy in the Philly area who's a forum member of mine for now 20 years. His name's Mike Flowers. Mike was always fairly happy. And I couldn't understand whether his business was going well or badly. And so finally we were having dinner one day at a retreat. I go, Mike, what drives you? I mean, how do you ever, with all the issues you face and the up and down, not lose your cool? How can you be so in touch with yourself? And his answer to me was, it's really simple. I have an attitude of gratitude. And that really stuck with me. So I said, what do you mean by that? He goes, it's simple. It's an attitude of gratitude. And I go, no, that makes no sense to me. And then I realized, I said, like anything else in my life, if I don't really understand it, the first thing I got to do is create a rhythm around it and then figure out a way to scale it. So I started with a really simple exercise. When I went to bed at night, I said, what am I grateful for today? And you know what's interesting? The first night, I couldn't think of one thing. And slowly, as I pushed my way through it, it was then my children, then my wife had stuck around with me. I can be really ornery. I can be really prickly. I burn really brightly. And I can be a bit of a schizophrenic. I know that about myself. And the fact that she stuck around with me and hung in there. And so I started making a list. And you know what's interesting? The longer the list became, the more I started liking myself. The more I started liking myself, the better the businesses went. And so, if you can figure out a way to heal yourself, my advice to you, if you don't know how to do it, start with an attitude of gratitude. It's amazing how your life then changes. So, just to summarize, since we're talking about me, myself, and I, it's really simple. Know thyself, heal thyself, and find help. That's the essence of the message. Is that all you need to sell companies for billions of dollars? I kind of think so. If you're in this room, you've already got all the other stuff going for you anyway. So on that note, I'll take any questions, and it can be about anything, scalability, fundraising, how to fire somebody, whatever the case might be. Feel free to just ask questions, and it can go on for as long. I've got a timer here that says 38 minutes, so max is going to be 38. Chances are we could get done in 10. I don't want to stand in the way of Hooters, so you take your pick.
Hi, Rudy. Thanks for coming. I thought last time you spoke a little bit about don't underestimate the value of luck, which we're touching on. It's good to share.
Okay. Do you remember what I said?
I believe it was something about floating checks.
This is not televised, is it? And this is not on record. This is just an internal. Somebody please say yes. Please say, thank you. You know, it's really interesting. Thanks for the question. A lot of people say luck is just made when opportunity meets something or the other. I think it's a little bit more than that, because there is this sense of environment, right, that drives us. And I really do believe that a lot of people say we make our luck through hard work, we make our luck through whatever. But the reality of the situation is, the fact that you're sitting in this room, you were born to the right parents to begin with. I mean, I was born to parents that were willing to value education over everything else. That's why I became an actuary. They drummed it into me. They were strong enough to be able to leave Kenya, live in England, and then move to Canada, and they hardly spoke English. My friend's parents, who was probably smarter than me in school, didn't have that drive and is still back in Kenya and eking out a living. So there is a lot to luck. And so I think what it really takes is this ability to recognize it for yourself. Where's my luck? And then apply it. But you can't change your luck. I mean, that's what you have. Is it important that you're smart? Yeah. Is it important you work hard? Yeah. But Dawn and I have had this conversation like hundreds of times. God, we were really lucky on that one, because we dodged a bullet. And you can't. So as you make your mistakes, understand some of it is simply bad luck. And don't beat yourself up too much. And that's the part when I talk about heal thyself. So luck is a really important part. I mean, you just wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for your parents. If you weren't born in a particular country to a particular set of parents, you wouldn't be in this room today. It's really that simple. Yep.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. Can you tell us the best advice you've ever received?
I would say, if I was looking at it for me personally, what changed my life was Mike telling me attitude of gratitude. It changed my whole perspective. It was a paradigm shift for me. If I look at it from a perspective of, in terms of making money, I think it was more than anything else is understanding your financial statements extremely well. I was at a couple of conferences, and Vern Harnish, I think, opened up the conference. You know, you got Vern Harnish, one of the best speakers in the conference, kicking you off. Vern, I was at his Birthing of Giants course at MIT, and there was a speaker there by the name of Jack Stack, who wrote this book, I forget which, and I ended up talking to Jack for a while. And he really was able to show me the power of being able to turn your business when you truly understand the financials. Because once you truly understand the financials, you then understand the drivers. So probably from a business growth perspective, I would say Jack Stack's story about understanding your financials. Now, that also plays to my strong suit, right? I'm an actuary, numbers come easy to me. I was just too bored to look at the stuff before. But once I understood where and how you needed to do it, I believe that probably had a major turning point for me from a business perspective.
As growing the business, do you have any tips on making sure the family balance is taken care of also, as we all work too hard? How did you balance it out as you grew your business?
Balance is for the birds. There is no such thing in my life as balance. I've never been able to balance anything. It's focus and energy in an area, and I just go for it. So be lucky enough to marry the right person who's your best friend 30 years later. It's probably one piece of advice I'd give you. I would say specifically two things. I gave up on the idea of balance 2-3 decades ago. What I realized I had to do was I had to learn how to juggle. And so maintain where I'm at with laser sharp focus. And the children grow at their own pace. You can't control that. And so there was kind of 2 or 3 governing rules I had with there. Number one, I would not get upset at the kids unless it was anything associated with the 3 S's. Anything related to suicide, substance, or sex didn't bother me at all. They can go get their ears pierced, they could go get tattoos on themselves, they could wear short dresses. I have 2 girls. They could do whatever they wanted to. My wife, on the other hand, was more of a disciplinarian. But to me, it was only those 3 S's. Everything revolved around that. And we used to have conversations about that. So I realized that because I traveled so much and my time was limited, that I would really focus in on what I believed were the 3 big issues in their lives. And so from a very young age, that was kind of my mantra. The second thing I did was always take them to school. So I'd adjust my day when I'm not traveling to take them to school. Don't want the buses, I'm going to take my kids to school. And the third thing I always did was I put them to bed. And my wife and I had a routine where she would be with one kid for 10 or 15 minutes, I'd be with, and we'd alternate kids. So there was half an hour of one-on-one time. Those were kind of the 3 things I did. And today I would say I'm reasonably close to my kids. I mean, I see them maybe twice a week. I talk to them just about every day. One's 30, one's 27. We're really good friends. So, I mean, I get along really well with them. So it's like having really few rules, but never, ever breaking them to the best of your ability. I mean, and the kids really know how to kind of just tweak you really well. Yeah, they're world's experts at that. And yeah, you get, I mean, I remember once I was hollering at one kid so loudly that a friend of hers in the house heard me hollering a block away through the car, through the house. I mean, and yeah, you do, those things do happen. But the reality of the situation is, if you can just remain focused on a few simple things, for me, I just don't have the energy. Like, there's a lot of people who can, there's a lot of, like my wife, okay, she can balance so many things. Like, she's so flexible. She can just absorb so much. I mean, if you listen to, she's been in 9 different verticals. She's a Fulbright scholar, a pilot. I mean, her list is endless. She sits on more boards. I mean, just, like, she's amazing. I don't know how she does it. I'm kind of the dumb businessman. She's kind of the smart all-rounder. But to me, it's just really trying to keep it simple. And so the way I maintain balance is I can't do it. It's too complicated for me. So I just focus and then juggle. I saw a hand go up over there. Yeah.
Rudy, after your issue with your partner, with him threatening your family, what happened to Connexa? And given your attitude for gratitude, how is your relationship with him now, if there is one?
His son-in-law works at Connexa. We kissed and made up about 3, maybe 4 years after the event. We probably talk 3, 4 times a year. It's never the same. But he was also 18 years older than me. So he was in a different stage in life. And like I said, his son-in-law works. And I was just over visiting his grandchildren in Toronto when I was there 3 weeks ago. So the relationship still exists.
After that event happened with him threatening you and your family, and I'm assuming you bought him out, what happened to Connexa after that? Was that the point where you...
No, because right after that, we made a play to go public in late 2000, right? My timing really is good, right when the bubble burst. We were running out of cash on March 9th when NASDAQ hit 5,000. We were actually closing on our round literally by physically pulling one of the investors and saying, sign the damn document, send us the check. We were so far out of money. So we blew our first tranche just like that, trying to go public, because we were absolutely shutting down most of our service arms that we had in our organization and really consolidating it into a product arm in the HR space, because we were all over the place. We really didn't know what the hell we were doing for a while there. We were just growing and growing and growing. We didn't even have a garden. We just had a bunch of weeds with a few flowers. Yep.
Hi there. Chip Dodd from Virginia Beach. A lot of this conference has been about scaling our companies. And probably most people here can't fathom being a CEO of a $100 million company, because of course the job is much different from going to 1 to 10 to 100 or whatever. So what would be your recommendation on us to learn as much as we can about what is our life going to be like and how can we best do our job as we scale?
So let me share one story with you. So in 2007, the market cap of Connexite hit $1 billion. And one of the bankers came to me and said he'd got his analyst to look at the data. And I think I mentioned this at the Philly event, so I apologize to the Philly members. Said to me, what does it feel like being one of whatever it was, 50, 100, 200 people on the planet that were there from day one to $1 billion? Now, I'm talking about this is like when billion really meant something. In 2009, 18 months later, I had a sell-side analyst that came to see me and say, you know, it was very serious. He said, I really want to understand how somebody who loses 85% of their market cap can still preserve their job. Like, how were you able to manage your board, right? This is 18 months apart, right? You're goat, hero. So I think the trick to scaling is really stopping to listen to the noise around you. The whole idea of scaling to me is, can you build robust enough processes but not too many processes? Because then you lose the soul of the organization. You can't have a lot of processes around people because you'll kill the creativity. Don't let finance run your company. Because unless you're blessed with a CFO like Don, who's really a businessman, and happens to be a chartered accountant, unless you have one of those, don't let finance run your company. Because they can only see profit, and it squeezes all sorts of creativity and innovation out of the organization. So there was an interesting study done by, I think, Harvard Business Review. It was called The Valley of Death. And what it did is it looked at all the companies that started and the number that got to $1 million. Do you know out of all the companies that start, how many reach $1 million in sales? Does anyone know what that number is? 6%, less than 6%. And that number repeats itself. There's only, and I'm going back now again, this is about 10-year-old data. Only 6% of the companies that hit $1 million hit 5. And only 6% of the companies that hit 5 hit 25. And then only 6% that hit 25 hit 50. That's a big one. Because that's when you start to get out of your core area and people start poaching you. I know we had 3 runs at 50 before we got through it. And then 6% to get to $250 million, and then 6% to get to $1 billion. So there's a lot of attrition that's taking place. And so what I would suggest is, if you really know yourself, then you know if you've got the skills to take it to the next level. With us, what was really impactful was some of the stuff that Vern taught us, right? Around the whole idea of Rockefeller habits was a big deal for me. Where we had our daily huddles, we had our rhythm, we had our top 1 to 5. I mean, a lot of those things were, for me personally, extremely helpful. And in fact, I was interviewed, I forget which, I think it was Fox. This was back in 2007 or 6. And I said, if there is one business book I would definitely read, it's Titan, which is the biography on Rockefeller, which is where Vern got a lot of his Rockefeller habits from. And if there is one business book that I would understand humanity's relationship with business, it's Non-Zero by Robert K. Wright, which is a really interesting story of, he's written it as a genetist, but it's really a story about business, where 1 + 1 is greater than 3, or greater than 2. So scaling is all about understanding kind of where the break points are. And then having confidence in being able to say, yeah, I can manage past that, or no, I can't. Yep. Right here. Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I can't see too well because of the lights.
No problem. When you started the company, as opposed to what it looked like when you sold it to IBM, I'm sure there are many iterations of changes throughout. What you initially did is not what you did toward the end. So I guess what were your challenges and where did you see the opportunity to get to where you got the company?
So here was an interesting study that we did. We looked at our revenues in 2009 and we went backwards for about 12 years. And what we realized was 90% of our revenues were not from products that were in place 4 years ago. So when you're growing, it's all about innovation. It's all about playing offense. It's all about going out there and just getting it done. So I'll give you an example. The company was founded with me being an actuarial consultant and actuarial headhunting. And the way I did actuarial headhunting was really simple. I simply realized that there was a delta of 50% in income between Canadian actuaries and American actuaries, even though they had the same designation. It was simply an accident of where they were living. And in the 80s, you could move from Canada to the US very easily. So I literally, there's only 500 fellows in Canada and only 5,000 in the US. And out of the 500, I knew 200 of them personally. I literally picked up the phone and dialed for dollars. That's how I started it. And just said, hey, you want to make 50% more, yes or no? And lo and behold, first year we moved 10, paid them 30, 35% of their income. All of a sudden, I tripled my income in a year. Then I developed a system to manage those resumes, which formed the foundation of the applicant tracking system that IBM ultimately bought 25 years ago. So we transitioned a lot from a survey. We were all over the place. I mean, we just, if you ever did a case study on Connexa, we can tell you every single mistake. We did everything you're not supposed to do. But there, for the grace of God, we would have gone. It was just unbelievable. When we took the company public, discontinued operations accounted for 45% of our revenues. And think about it, we actually took the company public with 45% of our revenues on discontinued line. And that was the rate at which the company was changing. So yeah, I mean, we saw quite a bit of change.
Hi, Rudy. You talked about as being an immigrant, there was a fine line between being on one side and being an executive.
A hairline, not even fine. It's like you can't barely see it.
And being the gardener.
Right.
Can you talk about your experience culturally coming to the United States from your other places, and how you were able to transition that into a successful career here in the U.S.?
God, I love this country. I mean, I just love this country with a passion. This is such an amazing place on the planet. I mean, we are just so incredibly fortunate. We don't even realize it. We have so much. And the people here are so welcoming. I don't think there is any place. Here's a story. I was born in Kenya. I know for a fact, if Obama tried to become the president of Kenya because his father was Kenyan, he wouldn't have been able to become the president of Kenya because he was half white. Only in this country can you do that. This country welcomes meritocracy and talent with open arms. It is amazing. It is the best place on the planet to be. It's got its challenges, but they're so few and so small relative to the opportunities of this country, the vastness of it, the greatness of it. So it was like, when I came here, I was like a kid in a candy store. Like, I couldn't believe that you could get education for free. You could actually get free education. Like, who's stupid enough to give you free education? Like, why wouldn't they charge you for it? You can actually get public transit that shows up on time. Like, I couldn't afford that, right? I used to take the bus for my first job. I could actually count on a bus coming up. And I didn't have to hang out of the bus. I could be inside the bus. Like, I mean, think about that. Like, it was just unbelievable. Like, and then people are actually kind enough to you. They say hello to you. You walk into a store, people actually say hello to you, as opposed to they're doing you a favor because you're going to buy something from them. in the last 5, 7, 8, 10 years, this notion of skin color has pretty well disappeared. Like, it's just unbelievable. You look at this country in 2010, 1 out of 6 marriages in the United States were between racially ethnic people. I'm not talking about French Germany, I'm talking about white, black, yellow, brown, that kind of stuff. 1 in 6 marriages. My elder daughter is married to a white guy who's from Argentina with Croatian background. No habla español, he couldn't speak English. And we had quite the interesting first 6 months while he learned English. But so I can't say anything but greatness about this country. The way it accepted us as immigrants, it gave us the opportunities and the support and the help. And you have the Welcoming Center of Pennsylvania that can help you find a job, teach you English. I mean, all this is free. Because this is the country that we live in. Unbelievable. And so to those of you that are born in this country and allowed me to come here, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. Like, I mean, you guys are amazing. You guys are amazing enough to have kind of created the government around you so that it's on your shoulders we stand,
Hi, if you want to scale, you have to build a leadership team.
Yes.
So can you experience share on your strategy and your plan when you had to build that leadership team to take you over to the next hump?
Yeah, so the way I built leadership teams is I've loved them to death till I hated them. Okay, so it's a basic, simple philosophy. You're a hero, boom, cliff, drop, you're a goat, get the fuck out. I'm sorry, get the hell out of here. Okay, so basically, so one of the things I'm really proud of, guess how many millionaires Connexa created? Anyone want to guess? 78. That's one of the statistics I'm really proud of. So what we did is the way we built the leadership team was through equity. Granted, a lot of it, a ton of it, a lot of people felt like owners. And so there was in the early stages, in the early culture of the organization, the CEO was elected, because I was a naturalized American, I wanted to follow everything by American standards. So I had to actually stand up for election every year to get voted as a CEO. That sucked. They changed that after about 4 years. But the ownership part, the ability to create wealth, that kind of stayed. And so anyone that owned the stock, we honored every single one of them and never recaptured it back. And it was expensive in certain cases, but we stood by it. So what we were able to do is we were able to attract the people that really wanted to make a difference and were willing to put out. So that was kind of the first thing we did. And then the other thing was because of the early culture of the company, where you had to get voted. So our leadership team, we had like five people. There were only 5 positions, so people would get in and out. So even as recently as the year in which IBM bought us, we had 2 leadership team members exit and 2 come in. So we had constant change, and a lot of the leadership team members still stuck around. Either they were mollified enough, or we were able to show them that their position no longer was valid. And then we had, within Connexa, we had developed a system around IO psychology, which we could use to predict the success of the hire, which is part of what IBM bought. And that predictive ability we applied to ourselves. So, like, I'll give you data points, right? I am seriously not on camera, am I? And this is not being recorded, correct?
It is being recorded.
Okay, then I won't say it. How can I tell you that story a little differently? Okay, so there is a client who has a little bit of gold on their arches, okay? And they were able to use our system to knock down first 6-month turnover down from 70% at the front staff level down to 5 in a different country in the world, and now they're replicating it in the US. So that system was really powerful to the point where at Connexa, our turnover rate after 3 years in one of the fastest growing companies, and we used to get poached like hell, less than 1%. Less than 1%. So literally in the 12 months before we sold to IBM, I can honestly say there were 2 people that left out of 3,300 that have been with the company for 3 years or more. And there's a lot of, if you look at the data, so, just let's compare 2 companies like Ford and GM, and we know kind of which way they're going. GM, 5 CEOs in 5 years. Ford, kind of steady leadership. Steady leadership is huge in predicting success of organizations. So, and once again, a lot of this stuff is available now. You can get it on our website. I'm not selling it anymore, but you got to be kind of a Fortune 500 to buy some of that stuff. But you can develop techniques and methodologies to predict retention of people. And so we never took that part easy. The other thing I think that the leadership team was extremely engaged with was, how you have reviews in the company? I would have what was called mutual reviews. So I would review them for half an hour, and then they would review me back for half an hour. And then I would report back to them based on whatever they said was I needed to get done, and I'd have the notes. So that notion of mutual leadership gave people a feeling of belonging and understanding, unless if you were somebody like Don who just laughed at everything I did and thought I was full of it. And he always came into the meetings going, I don't have anything to say, Rudy. Do you have anything to say? I go, no. He goes, okay, we're done. And then he'd leave. So we would have certain techniques like that.
Hi, Rudy. Corey Kupfer from New York. My question: you said that you used equity to build a management team a lot, especially in the earlier days. How did you make the decision on who got equity? Did you make some mistakes? I've seen a lot of companies that give too much equity too early to the wrong people. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, we made a lot of mistakes. I guess I can tell this story. Don, are you in the room? Wasn't this the one I was going to tell, that 12-to-1 buying out of old? Was it public information? It was part of the documents. Okay, so I can tell you this story. It's part of the public document. So yeah, we made that mistake, right? And there was 35 people that had left, about 35 people that had left over a period of 4 years, because we were going through the tough times between 2001 and 2005. And they left with about 30% of the organization, if I remember correctly. So we had 30% of the organization owned by hostile shareholders who had left owning significant chunks of it. And then we decided that, you know what we're going to do? We're going to offer to buy them out. So we told them that we are going to buy you out, and we're going to pay you $1 per share. And we're telling you we're going to be filing public at 14 to 16, because our attorneys insisted that we have to disclose all this information. But Don did such a good job that 20 out of the 30 sold their position. So he recaptured a ton at that point in time, thereby narrowing the dilution dramatically. Now, we got really lucky by doing that. I wouldn't recommend that as a strategy. Keep giving out bad shares and then hope you go public, and then and the people will be willing to give it to you 10 cents on the dollar. That's not a recommended strategy. But, I would say if I look back, I'm glad I made those mistakes, because that's okay. I mean, this country was kind enough to open its doors to me, so if I made a few mistakes and a few people got rich because of the way the dice rolled, so be it. And I'm not going to begrudge them, because when the decision was made to hire them, there was something I saw. So at the end of the day, when I made the mistake, it's my fault, and I'm going to have to suck up the consequences. That's kind of, so we started delaying it a little bit. We started vesting it over a period of time. But the things that you can do that when you're 100 million, 200 million, 300 million. When you're like 5 million, you're begging for people to join you. Like, I mean, what the hell are you going to do? Yeah, well, here's 3% of the company, and I hope to God I'm right. Yes, that's kind of what I did. So, I don't know if any other way. But if somebody else has figured it out, God bless them. They're way smarter than me.
Rudy, first of all, thank you so much for for giving us your time and sharing your experience with us here today. Really,
Remember, I'm the free local yokel, so that's no problems. But go ahead.
really appreciate it.
No worries.
So it sounded like, reading between the lines a little bit, there was a tremendous amount of imbalance in your financial life through some of this ride.
Oh man, I was so broke.
Yeah,
I mean, talk about funny. No. I skipped meals. I physically had to break. So I'll just share a story. I actually had to break my kids' piggy bank because I couldn't afford the gas to go to New York to hammer a check that came in early because the landlord was getting ready to kick me out. I'm not kidding you. This was before Don joined us, but go ahead, yeah.
So you had that, you had the construction loan,
yeah.
Whatever Paul was talking about that we don't want to talk about. How did that affect your wife and your family, and how did you deal with that and keep everything in balance on a personal level?
I think the way, with the kids, what I did was I started talking about money by the time they were 3 and 6. So maybe even 2 and 5. So we would talk about budgeting and money, and then we say, hey, there's problems in the business. So to give you a very specific example, when we were doing our family planning and financial planning and building of trusts, by the time the kids were 12 and 15, we were participating on who would get what, how much would go to charity. We'd have family meetings around it. Initially, I said, kids, you're getting nothing, and they thought I was nuts, but they read the documents that said they were going to get nothing other than their education by the time they graduated, and it was their only gift. So we went through that. We went through a lot of that stuff. So with the kids, it was very, very early communication, and so it became not a big deal. Okay, so we're trying to navigate through this stretch. My wife is another story. Okay, I left. Okay, so I don't mind sharing the story now. I used to be in a YPO forum. And one of the things that most people didn't realize is my wife, up until 2000, and then we were doing reasonably well by 2000, she had never paid more than like $40 for a dress. Like the most she had paid for a dress was $40. So she would go into the used stores. I don't know how she did it. And she's gorgeous. I mean, those of you that know her, she just knew how to dress. And so I was at a YPO event, and I'd mentioned that in forum. And so this forum mate went to my wife and said, you're looking really good in your $30 dress. And I quit forum after that because she didn't honor confidentiality. But my wife has just no material concept of wealth. To this day, we don't have a cleaner at home. I mean, we live in a 8,000 square foot home. She does it all. So my wife was the easiest part to handle. Like, she just spent no money. Like, when we were broke, she had the ability to buy a week's groceries using coupons for less than $3 a week. So she was just extremely adept. And if I didn't have that kind of support backing me up, and she doesn't care. She drives a 7-year-old Acura. I have a Ferrari and a BMW. She has a 7-year-old Acura. She just doesn't care. I mean, it's just night and day. I mean, she just doesn't care. So it's like, it was so easy. It was a non-issue. Honey, we're broke. Oh, okay, well, I guess I got food for tomorrow. We're fine. I said, okay, I guess you're right. Honey, we're going to get kicked out, I think. Oh, well, you know what? We did leave a security blanket at your parents' place in Toronto. It has a double bed, and it's got another. We can go sleep in the basement over there. And she meant it, and she means it. So there was kind of no pressure from there. It was all about me. So I don't know if I can be helpful in that area. Sorry.
Last question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask for one clarifying to that, but I can pass. If there's one last question needs to be answered.
One last question from the back here.
I was just trying to figure out with 1% attrition with the staff, we learned so much about culture in our environment. Did everybody, I mean, you didn't give shares to everybody, obviously, but did everybody know you were going public? Is that?
Oh, yeah. No, we went pretty deep.
You did.
Don, how deep were we at one point in time? Like 300 employees had options? Yep. We went pretty deep. 300. When we went public, it was 300 out of 600, right? Yeah, so it's about 50% of the company. So we went very deep.
My last question is, what are you doing now every day?
Since IBM bought us, I've started another fund, hatched 2 new companies, invested in 8, and working part-time at IBM. I'm getting paid full-time for working part-time at IBM. I really want to finish on a quick note here, because I think it's important. I think it's probably more important for me to say this than for you to hear it. So please put up with me for another 2 minutes. I mentioned to you earlier on how proud I am to be an American and how important this country is to me. I think what we don't realize is one of the drivers of our economy is we have a very low dependency ratio. A greater percentage of our citizens are employed than probably anywhere else in the world. We're running, at the peak, we ran at about 66%. We dropped down to 63, and we're back up to about 64.5 or 65. And what has happened is, as the planet has evolved, as a species, we went from work being survival, so we put food on the table, to work what we are. We took the last names of that. You know, if you're Smith or Chaiwala, if you're from India. And then it became our career. So we had social classifications and where we lived by what we did. Today, our job is who we are. It is an integral part of our ethos, and it's an integral part of our country's ethos. Now, the number one provider of those jobs are people in this room. We, or you as entrepreneurs, are the only surviving class in our society today that is not taking a lot of hits. We're in the golden age of entrepreneurialism. Our politicians have been rocked. Our large institutions have been rocked. Our churches and mosques have been rocked. Across the board, across society, we've been taking hard hits. What you're doing with the jobs you create, you're adding and contributing to the fabric of this country. You're expanding on the ethos. And out of all the accolades and awards that I've won, there is nothing so prized to me as when I meet a total stranger and they say something nice about one of the companies I'm involved in. So as I look into the future, my thoughts and prayers are, may we continue to create jobs, and in the words of the Army, be all we can be. Good luck, God bless.
You and me together. No, you go. I'll do the announcements. Okay. Thank you. That was wonderful.
Thanks.
Pretty good for a local yokel.
Before Eric comes on with the announcements for the rest of the evening, we just want to shout out, Eric's been congratulating all the people that helped him put this together, but let's make sure we just give Eric one more round of applause for really putting this event together.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's it. Thank you. Job is done. Got to the Hooters. So I'm driving around in my 1975 Chevy Nova, jamming to the Hooters. Said to Nerve, hey, I'd really like to have a private concert with a Philly band for my people that are coming into Philadelphia. So our next thing that we're going to be working on is flipping this room over that we're in now. The hotel staff is going to do a fabulous job of changing this into a sick rock club in the next 45 to 60 minutes. In the meantime, I'd like you guys to join me to just go outside these doors in the sponsor area and also in the Nerve Marketplace for a fabulous beer bash sponsored by Susquehanna Brewing Company, who have been a fabulous sponsor. Let's get some beers on. The work is done for the week, and then we'll come back here in just a short time for some amazing food, top shelf liquor, and the amazing Hooters. Thank you, everybody.